Folks, in a stunning story out of Philadelphia, heterosexual black women are at a higher risk of contracting HIV than their white counterparts. There's been some debate about why and how to fix the problem. Studies show it's not behavior, as African-American women have fewer sexual partners and are more likely to use condoms than white women from similar economic backgrounds. And they aren't part of the higher risk group, gay and bisexual men. Public health campaigns have targeted vulnerable populations, including African Americans, because as recently as 2015, blacks accounted for 45% of new HIV diagnoses. But some researchers think it might be what's called geo-behavioral vulnerability, meaning it's not just what you do, but where you do it and with whom, that can increase your risk of getting HIV. Studies show that in Philadelphia, women outnumber men greatly, partly because of incarceration. If the men then sleep around, that could raise the odds of spreading HIV, and because more have been in prison, that might be one of the risk factors for African American women. Joining me now via Skype from Sewell, New Jersey, is Dr. Caudle, a family physician. Doc, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. So your thoughts on this study, this whole idea of geographical, these boundaries, how this could play a role in the spread of HIV in Philadelphia?
Yeah, no, I do have a lot of thoughts about that. It's you're right, this geo-behavioral vulnerability, and I think you did a great job of sort of discussing what the issue is. African Americans are the group, the racial group, we are most affected by HIV in this country. And African American women, we are even further affected in the sense that of all women in the country, African American women are the most affected racial group. But what we're talking about here, this geo-behavioral vulnerability, is this idea that it's not just whether we're using condoms, using them correctly, safe sex, monogamy, etc. It's not just our behavior that matters and affects these HIV risk rates. It's also where we live. And that's what geo-behavioral vulnerability is. And the researcher, her name is Dr. Bridget Bronner. I actually talked to her this morning. I gave her a call. She's a researcher, African-American researcher at the University of Pennsylvania. And her research is very interesting because one of the things she talks about is it's not just what you do. It's also where you live that affects potentially your HIV risk.
So the question is, what do we do to fix the problem?
Right. So there are things that we need to do on so many different levels. I mean, I mentioned basic things like obviously using safe sex practices, monogamy, things like that. But there are also other things that we can do. It's important to know your status. One of the risk factors, or one of the risks to African Americans having this higher rates of HIV, we think is a lack of knowledge about our status. People need to know their status. Get tested. It's one of the first things we can do, because if we don't know that we have HIV, then we can't get treated for it, we can't prevent the spread, etc. But there are other issues, and this is where Dr. Bridget Bronner's research comes in. It's not just looking at our behavior. Researchers, scientists, healthcare professionals, and even patients, all of us, needs to look at where we live. As African Americans, we need healthy communities. We need access to health care. We need educational resources. We need a lot of things, and the socioeconomics very well might just play a role into the rates of HIV. So, Roland, I would say it's multifactorial. It goes from basic individual level of wearing condoms and being safe, to knowing your status and getting tested, to a geographical level of making sure that our communities are thriving and positive and have all the resources that we need to live healthy lives.
Scott Bolden has a quick question. Scott?
Yeah, Dr. Caudle, thank you for sharing. I'm having a hard time getting my arms around this geo part of of your presentation. That is, tell me what's wrong with this proposition. If everyone has safe sex, then the factoring of you getting HIV is significantly reduced wherever you have sex, in Philly or somewhere else. Why isn't that enough? Why are you expanding this to other kind of social and geographical reasons?
Okay, that's a great question.
Doc, about 30 seconds. About 30 seconds.
Okay. Simply because research shows, and the research is of Dr. Bridget Bronner. This is her research, and what she's saying is that it's not just enough to pay attention to behavior. Roland just mentioned that Black women are very safe. He just mentioned that we are very safe. So then why are we getting HIV? And the idea is maybe it's not just our behavior. We have to expand our lens and look at other potential risk factors.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Jen Caudle, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much, and we'll keep paying attention to this story. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.